When looking at obesity in kids, obesity has tripled in the past 20 years from 6% of use to 18%. And so kids are at increased risk of chronic diseases such as asthma and type 2 diabetes. So, and also, kids can still have type 1 diabetes. It's more commonly to be diagnosed during the childhood years. Definitions for obesity with kids are different than for adults. If you remember, adult cut points for BMI, 25 for overweight, and 30 for obese, and 40 for morbidly obese. With kids, you have to plot them out on percentiles for their height and weight by gender. And so what we're going to be doing in class is using the BMI calculator link and the CDC charts that are available as part of your case studies, because I want you to be able to do this for kids. So overweight for kids is defined above the 85th percentile for height and weight, and then obese is above the 95th percentile for height and weight. A couple years ago when we had the ZestQuest grant, we were able to have kids come in and work with the students after school as sort of a fitness mentor. And most of the kids that we had were at the 97, 98th percentile for weight. Even some of the kids that you don't think are very large, it's amazing how high they can come up on those CDC charts. So, but know how to calculate and know those cut points for obesity for BMI in kids. The differences at the onset of exercise, so the acute response to exercise with kids. Children have a higher heart rate. Think back, 220 minus age to estimate your maximum heart rate. So kids are younger, they're going to have a higher heart rate. They're going to have a lower cardiac output, so heart rate times stroke volume. Even so their heart rate's higher, but the amount of volume of blood that's pumped with each beat, the stroke volume is going to be lower. So, and they're smaller. They have a smaller cardiovascular system, so this kind of makes sense. The AVO2 difference is higher with these kids. So their level of extraction, they're able to extract a lot of blood, and that's because they actually have a higher blood flow. Blood pressure is going to be lower than adults, but it would not be uncommon for some kids who are overweight or obese to have higher blood pressure. They also have a higher minute ventilation, that's V sub E, so a higher frequency of respiration of their respiratory rate, but they're going to have a lower tidal volume. They're going to take in less air. The amount of air that they breathe per breath, that's going to be smaller than an adult. So a higher frequency of respiration and a lower tidal volume. On an exercise capacity basis, it makes sense. Their absolute VO2 is lower. So VO2 expressed in liters per minute is going to be lower. They're smaller. They have a smaller body size. We talked about a smaller cardiovascular system. So their absolute VO2 is going to be lower. Their relative VO2, most studies indicate that it is comparable to adults. So if you have a child and they can run a mile in 8 minutes, then that is pretty comparable to an adult. In the 5Ks, some of the 5Ks I've done, I've seen some kids do incredibly well. The 5K, the second place overall in the women's group was a 13-year-old girl. So that is a comparable performance to an adult. So it's pretty amazing to see that when you're used to working with kids that are overweight and they're not really that interested in exercise, to look at the kids who are really on the other end of that. Their anaerobic capacity is lower, both absolute and relative. And this is covered pretty well in the position statement on youth resistance training of why that's so. Younger children have less anaerobic capacity than older children. They produce less lactate. They have fewer type 2 muscle fibers. That's going to really increase as they go through puberty. They also don't have the most efficient running or walking gait. So they waste a lot of energy in their movement. Their arms and legs are flailing about, so they don't have the most mechanical efficiency in their movement.